It is Monday, August 27th, 2018. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And unfortunately, we did not get our asses kicked at Jiu-Jitsu today. Try as I might, I did not make the 6 a.m. class. I got up, I checked the clock. Somehow or another, I managed to sleep like an additional half an hour while the alarm was going. So I gotta like switch up my alarm protocol or my sleep preparation, which probably would have been the better end to address that on. Anyway, so yeah, I didn't make it to the 6 a.m. class, and I would have gone to this evening's class, but unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, Master Hickson Gracie did a webinar today, and I decided to, I had pre-registered for it, so unfortunately it did interfere with my class. However, it was educational, and it's Hickson Gracie, so we got to make these value decisions occasionally. I can miss today. I will go tomorrow. Probably stay for 2 classes. But yeah, so it was very educational. It probably would have been much more educational if I actually had a partner here to do 1 or 2 of the things that were presented. And of course, there's always the social aspect of class. I probably would have rather have been in class with my teammates. Unfortunately, like I said, these things kind of conflict, and I think it was important to listen to. He was certainly covering some really important material. So yeah, did not get our asses kicked this Monday at Jiu-Jitsu. We'll make up for it tomorrow. We'll probably get my ass kicked a lot. But yeah, hopefully everybody had a really good weekend. I was alright. I would have liked to have gone fishing, but I've been like really, really busy trying to sew up the final steps of some of my outdoor adventures. And yeah, as soon as that's resolved though, man, let me tell you, I'm going to be out there beating the water. But yeah, in the meantime though, crypto has certainly kept me entertained. A little bit of a bump today. I don't know if you guys have been watching it, but Verge up there at 215 right now on Bittrex, and it's been slow in recovery. Verge has. I think that it may be finally on the mend. I could be mistaken. Don't quote me. Don't make bets according to what I'm telling you. That's not the point of this show. We do education. We don't do pumps. But anyway, I've been hoping and praying for some sort of turnaround. I'm not entirely convinced this is it, but it would be nice, wouldn't it? But a lot of people have been calling a little fluctuation in the current bear trend, and I don't know. I've had a discussion with somebody a little bit earlier today on Twitter, and I'm sure if you look on my Twitter feed you can find it. But we were discussing certain issues within Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash and all that other shit. And at one point in the conversation, I indicated to my friend here that I really think that we only have these kind of conversations and these philosophical debates because we can afford to. We're not at a point where we're questioning whether or not we can actually afford to keep playing the stupid ass games that we've been playing. And I'd also indicated that I thought that certain projects that would buck this trend, they generally have a 2 to 5 year period before they run out of other people's money. Basically. And that was not any specific coin that I was in reference to or project, but we've seen it several times within crypto where somebody will come up with a company or a gimmick or an idea, and they'll push it really hard, they'll get some adoption, and then it'll kind of trail off, and before you know it, they're having to sell off equity, and then, they get bought out finally and in total. And, that's, in my mind, that's a response, or that's the kind of thing that happens when you're trying to artificially manipulate the market. You're trying to contort the market in such a way that is not advantageous to everybody else on the market. And so it's kind of a reciprocal thing. It does catch up with you, is what I'm saying. It's not immediate, maybe. It might not happen right away, but eventually that shit is going to catch up with you, and before you know it, your creditors aren't going to be giving you any more loans or grants or however they were dispersing to you funds, and then you're completely fucked. Sorry, that's how it works. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down into a first dance, because we have not played any music yet. And I'm completely up in the air as far as what to pick, because I've got a quite diverse array. I got Gizmochi going right now, so let's do that. Gizmochi, People Show. First dance here on Coin Metal. And that was Meshuggah with Nostrum. And yeah, as far as what we're going to get into today, I hadn't really dug too deep into my old browser tabs here to figure out exactly where I wanted to go with this, because I do have a good deal of stuff open on here. But I did come across something that I found interesting, only because I haven't read it yet. I got in a discussion with somebody on Twitter, and they seem to be talking up a cryptocurrency that doesn't have any mining. And I thought that was really interesting. Anyway, this is the white paper for it that I've got here in front of me. And apparently this thing was authored back November 1st of 2017. So I'm amazed we haven't heard more about it. This is called a Global Automatic Dividend, a cryptographically driven monetary and income system. This is by Todd McKissick, and again, it was authored on November 1st, 2017. It's approximately 19 pages, and so I think we can make it through. It's not terribly large font, or terribly small font, and it is double spaced. So, like I said, we might just make it through. Continuing on. Abstract. A proposal for a stable digital currency for the current, new, and transitional eras of monetary operation. This digital currency provides rapid, proven transactions at minimal delay without any need for managing control or a supporting infrastructure, causes no excess energy load, and self-balances. Oh shit. Self-balances. Where the fuck did I find it? Jesus Christ. This digital currency provides rapid, proven transactions at minimal delay without the need for managing control or supporting infrastructure, causes no excess energy load, and self-balances all aspects of monetary operations. Through a minimal transaction fee, it automatically generates a universal basic income, here called a global automated dividend, to every unique human member, and extends this feature to loans, investment, and insurance. The adoption only requires the installation of a single application on a smart device. Oh wow. Dude, talk about ambitious. Continuing on. Number 1. Current problems faced. 1.1 Debt basis. The current official currencies of various nations are all debt-based. This means that they are not created by some decree, but by them being lent into existence. A loan is requested and the principal is simply said to exist and entered into a ledger as being owned by the borrower. The borrower must then pay back this principal amount plus the interest charged on it, known as usury. The interest amount was not created, so it must be obtained by further borrowing. In a large, economically diverse economy, this is hidden by the fact that other borrowers are available to obtain money from. Meanwhile, the lender gets to create their product at no cost and charge every player in the vast economy for its use. The process and problem applies equally on the small scale between local banks and individuals, as well as on a large scale between central banks and governments. 1.2 Inflation. The unrelenting demand for more loans is a root cause for inflation. As individual players attempt to pay off their debts, the money supply falls and creates an artificial scarcity, which drives up the problem of obtaining it. It becomes harder and harder to increase each individual's wealth when every other individual is required to do the same. Musical chairs is the best analogy for this scenario, except that this happens by removing portions of chairs over time so no one notices any chair went missing. To cover this, many more borrowers are needed to counter the money destruction. Oh, damn it. Money destruction, where are we at? Inflation, money destruction. This boosts the scarcity to new levels and increases the money supply, but only increases the debt. It's an endless cycle. We know the last bursts of those to be QEs 1 through infinity. 1.3 Growth mandate. The result of this process is that the entire economy is forced to grow to simply survive in the system. If it doesn't grow fast enough, a percentage of the loans are mathematically guaranteed to default. Countering this is only done by further acceleration of the problem. Cyclic switching between higher growth via easy credit attraction to borrowing, called a boom time, and lower growth, allowing debtors to default, called a recession or a bust, is how the overall operation has reacted, and it has become taught as though it was unavoidable. It is unavoidable when you have a completely unaccountable currency underneath it. 1.4 Value stability. The value of the underlying currency is then, by this design, unstable. It increases too fast to match the economic growth of productive goods and services combined with the increase in population. As such, over longer periods, the value of a single currency unit falls over time. In the last century, the US dollar has fallen 97% in what it will purchase. This value has effectively been transferred away from the productive class. The banks that benefit from the thin air creation of money are the biggest beneficiaries. Yes, of course they are. That's the design of it. Wealth power. Since more wealth translates to more power, This means that each wealthier class has proportionally more to pass their debt on to the poorer classes in a hierarchical fashion. Phrases like pass the buck and stuff rolls downhill apply here. The poorer an individual is, the more susceptible they are to accepting bad terms on a transaction, but also the more people they are susceptible to being taken advantage from. Overall, wealth becomes exponentially equivalent to power. Exponentially equivalent? How do you do that? With a majority of the world holding negative wealth, they have lost all power over markets, social settings, politics, and their wage negotiations. The developing world is harmed most by this, but since each group is fighting for their own survival, justifications outweigh awareness. And I cannot hit a fucking motion arrow on this or it just jumps all over the place. 1.6 Exchange. Through the system of having multiple currencies in existence, other processes exist to profit by virtue of already having significant wealth. The proportional power increase is further hidden from scrutiny by national pride, isolationism, fear, safety, and business focus of society. This isn't simply the existence of national currencies like the dollar, the euro, the pound, or the yen. It also includes cryptocurrencies, derived stock tokens of company ownership, tokens of future ownership, bonds, and packages carefully manipulated to hide risk and reward by arbitrarily grouping things like debts, commodities, futures, options, bets, insurance, and everything else qualifying as a token. These all have obscure justifications for existence, but when analyzed in the big picture, they hide further wealth transfer. Even a simple... Goddamn son of a bitch. It goes right back to the start if I touch an arrow key. Alright, futures, options, bet, insurance, token. Obscure jurisdictions of existence, but analyze the big picture. They hide their further wealth transfer. Even a simple view of this shows that for any transaction to occur between tokens, there must be some value attraction. As such, the more types of tokens that exist, and the more numbers of transactions in tokens, the more value is extracted from the underlying thing that token represents. 1.7 Technological deflation. Since human history began being recorded, advancements have allowed more work to be done by less human labor. Each advance has removed workload on society to yield the same goods and services. This has been offset by an increase in work necessary to maintain infrastructure to support a new technology. Industries which needed ongoing infrastructure support, like automobiles, steel, telephones, have maintained the labor need at higher rates, but this has only masked the fallen labor needed to bring about the advance. Overall, advance brings more benefits per unit of human labor than it costs in that labor. 1.8 Automation. In the 1970s, this took a major shift as machines could be taught to perform automated tasks in manufacturing, which increased production for only a marginal cost increase of raw resources. Jobs began a trend of stagnating while productivity maintained its perpetual rise. A few other factors kicked in simultaneously, like removing the restriction on money creation, banks marketing non-purposed generalized credit card debt, and the movement of women to become accepted in the workforce. These helped the economy hide further the increase in wealth transfer from the workers to those profiting solely by virtue of having more money. Actually, it's by virtue of having properly invested money, but, we won't go there. 1.9. Compromise. The overall result of all these changes is that a portion of an individual's income required to maintain a stable or growing standard of living began its march upward. The non-discretionary expenses began to dominate individuals' budgets. The result was to compromise on long-standing traditions like single-wage earner families, child-rearing attention, avoiding debt, stable employment, job benefits, and even career paths. With each compromise, society accepted more social evils just to maintain the accepted living standard. Increases which they rightfully deserved. Oh, what? Accepted living standard increases which they rightfully deserved. A generation later, it is accepted by the newer generations that this compromise is normal human behavior. Overall, however, people unconsciously know that simple survival is getting tougher to accomplish, which is causing an increase in tensions. Movements like Occupy Wall Street and Arab Spring show this unrest, even though the underlying causes were unidentified. I can identify a few of them. A couple were CIA, a couple were NATO. Anyway, continuing on. 1.10. Optimization. Following this burgeoning trend, the first major recession caused each group to optimize their expenses. The fluff jobs were eliminated in favor of more technological advancement. Websites became the norm for business transactions. Middle managers were merged into the workforce they managed. Outsourcing was brought in-house or sent to the cheapest labor communities. Consultants were eliminated. Automation was ramped up in the forms of robots, intelligent machines, and even simple software solutions. Traditional employment jobs became scarce, and further compromise replaced them with the gig economy. Since then, these jobs have been subject to extreme competition since there is no longer an emotional link between the task requester and the task performer. 1.11. Technological unemployment. The combined trends of jobs being subject to efficiency scrutiny on all levels, of jobs being replaced by automation, of jobs being created in smaller numbers for new supporting infrastructures, of jobs no longer supporting extra services like healthcare, retirement plans, are all now converging on each other. Also, these trends are no longer offsetting the rate of job creation through the creation of new technologies. New technologies are being created at an accelerated pace, but are also being supported more by automation which requires fewer employees. Billion-dollar companies come into existence regularly now, which have as few as 1,000th of the number of employees they used to have, which is a good thing. That's called efficiency increases. 1.12. Network effect. The factors which are causing less jobs to be available as time progresses are all subject to cross-support. With each advance in sensors for one industry, other industries can perform more efficiently and promote even further advancements in technologies. With each feature stuffed into a cell phone, more knowledge, communication, education, and capabilities become available from every industry. With each increase in function of a computer, it takes less human labor and smaller quantities of computers to do the same work. Combining all this across every industry, we can see an exponential rise in the speed we are approaching reduced work. And the problem with exponential trends is that they are often discounted until they are 3 or 4 doubling periods away from their full transition. Today we have half a dozen major exponential trends cross-supporting each other at the 2 to 5% adoption level, and each are predicted to go full disruption within 15 years. Looking at this situation with the network effect helping, those time frames could be cut by a decade. Yeah. Let's see, where are we at in here? Decade. There we go. 1.13 or 1.13. Conclusion. The result of all of this taking place is that our economy based on debt, growth, inflation, scarcity, hoarding, and passing the buck is set to fail within 5 to 8 years at maximum. As such, a new system must be planned, refined, implemented, and adopted completely before 5 more years passes. No major government program on such a scale is even possible in that time frame. That's fine. They'll just go extinct. This is one of those things. It's like you want to talk about like an extinction level event. I mean, if we can retain the control that we would currently have in having our funds in our own wallet and having possession of our own keys and being the only people that have access to our keys, that is so much more powerful than that money being in a bank. Because if it's in a bank, it can be seized. They can say, no, you can't use it. Cryptocurrencies, a lot of them don't have such limitations. So, anyway, continuing on. Number 2, solutions. 2.1, member-based quantity. The biggest single correction possible is to create a universal currency which serves all desired purposes perfectly. It should not generate new units from the debt process, but should match its quantity to the number of members using it, even as membership rises or falls. For stability, it should regulate this process based on a metric that accounts for the value held by those members. As new wealth is created, it is reflected in an increase in the number of each unit, not the number of units. 2.2. Deflationary. This is generally termed deflationary because the unit's cost of goods falls over time. It also promotes savings by increasing the value of held currency before it is spent. This drives a minor trend of savings, replacing the need to invest simply to beat inflation. It also matches well with the cost of goods. And damn it, I did it again. I keep wanting to hit the down arrow on this, and it completely resets where I'm at. It's like, dude, really? Give me a fucking break. It also matches well with the cost of goods and services falling due to technological advancements. In other words, living standards can increase without a proportional increase in labor worked. This is necessary for the economy's survival as we approach the endgame of a world where no paid jobs exist. We need a policy which adapts proportionally by itself and doesn't wait for government consensus to change. 2.3. Market-driven. This feedback from prosperity to money supply can easily be created in an algorithm implemented into a cryptocurrency. As new members join, new currency units are created to match their total value brought to the system. Who determines the level of value they're bringing to the system, though? This number can be finely tuned, can be can be finely tuned a minimal amount over time, but it should trend in proportion with the wealth that society's total advancement is increasing and individual standard of living by. 2.4. Velocity balanced. As new membership is attracted, it is assumed that they will bring a level of creativity, consumption, transactions, assets, innovation, and networking to the economy. If all of these activities were accounted for completely within each day they occurred, the multiplier of their transacted money to total economic activity, which would reach all the way to the base resources of their transaction. As such, we can easily speed up this accounting. With the Internet of Things and rapid micropayments, and by encouraging payments based on daily costs, the economy will flow through this accounting process seamlessly. The result is that there is now a monetary transaction to show for each contributor. In other words, the total of those transactions equals the total proportion of economic activity by that event. 2.5. Inequality. The concentration of both wealth and the power it offers is most easily viewed as the percentage of a person's discretionary spending to their full expenditures. People who have no spare money after paying for survival don't spend money on extravagances. If the payment of recurring bills was successfully encouraged to be automated daily, this would be trackable to identify this ratio. As more discretionary money becomes available to them, their ratio of discretionary spending to total spending would increase. A crypto design which categorized all transactions would thus allow the overall ratio of survival spending to discretionary spending. In other terms, it would show how many people hold power over their world versus how many hold none. This ratio would now become an inequality indicator. Oh, give me a fucking break, dude. Really? 2.6. Scalable. The last solution needed is for the new currency to be scalable. This obviously means that it should be able to cover the needs of as many people and groups as exist. But it also means it should scale down to handle the smallest transactions as well as the fastest speed they could occur at. For each of these cases, it needs to remain unbiased and balanced in its costs, benefits, utility, and value. By treating each account equally, By treating each account equally, this is accomplished. By creating the same number of currency units for each new member, the intrinsic value is held constant even though the actual value may rise as society advances. Nominal values would remain constant for all goods where no advancement was at play. This requires using a cryptographic platform which avoids centralized control, even temporary leader functions, and centralized management, even vast groups hosting the ledger functions, and which could operate on no external power other than each user managing their own finances. It should be fast enough to handle every transaction desired, including the approaching rapid device-to-device microtransactions, which will be coming when machines bill each other for their discrete functions. Give me a break. This means that each account holder needs to hold their own ledger information, but that their peers need a way to... Damn it, I keep forgetting about that down arrow thing. Let's see, scalable. Create units, new member, finances. Okay, we haven't quite got there yet. It should be fast enough to handle every transaction desired, including the approaching rapid device-to-device microtransactions, which will be coming when machines bill each other for their discrete functions. This means each account holder needs to hold their own ledger information, but that their peers need a way to guarantee accuracy and accountability. Yeah. Number 3, proposal. 3.1, Hashgraph. This platform is a fully decentralized, autonomous network of cell phone apps that handle all the functions required for this proposal. It does not create any single database of information, but rather communicates every action taken on the network in a highly efficient manner to every node. As such, a currency ledger can be implemented on this platform, which surpasses expectations on speed, security, fault tolerance, corruption, resilience, ease of use, automated payments, transaction contracts, market analysis, and cell phone features in a single application package. The phone or other device resources needed to support this are minimal and do not require constant uptime or unreasonable system resources. 3.2, Identity. The creation of new accounts needs to be managed by a foolproof process of human identity and uniqueness. While people may have multiple accounts, they may only have one primary account. Primary accounts also need to be isolated to only one person, not a family or company. To accomplish this, the proposal is to use a combination of two recent technologies, facial recognition and micro-expression recognition. God damn. Gonna check me into a minimum security fucking prison just so I can use my own money. The process is as follows. When using the application, the user is identified by facial recognition and its key points compared to a floating decentralized database of known members. To validate the phone's camera is not viewing a static image, the face is monitored for micro-expressions in response to a random trigger placed on the screen. If the trigger is to elicit fear, validation is only possible if the viewed face responds with fear-based emotion in an appropriate time. Similarly, a sad trigger should only cause a sad emotion. This verifies that the face is alive and human and directly in the vicinity of the phone. Doesn't actually verify who they are though. Delays due to transmitting the trigger to another system to generate a response will time out the process. Triggers may only Why do I keep trying to use the fucking arrow key on this? I don't understand it. I know it doesn't work. Let's see here. Response care, identity. To accomplish this, the proposal is to use a combination of two recent technologies, blah blah blah. If the trigger is to elicit fear, we got that. Delays due to transmitting the trigger to another system generate a response that will time out the process. Triggers may be text only, imagery, or video, and may be combined with multiple others in rapid succession, while responses are measured by the normal human reaction time they elicit. Response time multipliers may add different speed factors to uniquely fast or slow responding individuals. 3.3 Transactions. The transaction activity of each account in the system is then stored in a constantly growing ledger that gets passed to all members' devices. Once full network consensus is achieved to a given point, a save point is generated and past transactions may be truncated from live operations and archived as desired. This speeds the process of catching up should a device be offline for a period of time. As a result, once logging into one's account, a transaction can be performed within a few seconds, and the result can usually be proven fully validated within a few more seconds, that is. Depending on the timing of the last known save point and the device's recent uptime, this should take no longer than a minute. Devices with high bandwidth and uptime should be able to make hundreds of transactions per second with no delay. Why would I need to? 3.4. Transaction-funded dividend. During the process of performing each transaction, a transaction fee of 1% is assessed. This would be removed from the amount received at any time money is moved from one account to another for any reason. It is universal and unavoidable, given even on secondary accounts. My apologies, not given. The purpose of this fee is to aggregate the amount in proportion to total economic activity into a dividend to create a universal basic income. At the end of the day, this account is distributed equally to each primary account at midnight GMT. Since the currency is not tied to any nation, it is by default global, so this may be called a global automatic dividend. The dividend generated is thus 1% of the total economic activity of the entire monetary system for the previous day. 3.5. Fairness. Being accumulated daily and paid daily, it will eliminate pay period issues like verifying month lengths or weekend-based biases. As the currency's daily velocity increases, so does the next day's dividend yielding trust rapid feedback as to how the economy is faring. As automation breaks supply chains into smaller pieces, this maintains the set fee of 1% on that activity, even down to charging 1% on a fee as small as conceivable. 3.6. Automatic monetary supply adjustment. Oh, this is where it gets fun. The phone application running this system will strongly encourage members to change one-time transactions into daily payments. This has multiple effects on the system. On the average, discretionary spending is not done via payments and cannot easily be turned into daily amounts. As such, the ratio automated daily payments representing reoccurring bills changes to reflect changes in discretionary income, both from the dividend and from earned income, over the whole network. This discretionary ratio can then influence how the money supply can be adjusted to ensure people have enough money to continually increase their living standard without causing inflation. This amount should not be able to change quickly, so it is proposed to only change the amount created for each new member. In the early in this process, the volatility will be higher than later on when many members exist. So this will migrate towards more stability as time passes. It also ensures that the trend of changes in discretionary income take full effect before the monetary supply begins to adjust. And, we're going to pause it right there on 3.6. I got to get some caffeine in me. I'm kind of fading here, so. As far as what to throw in, I hadn't even picked that. See, Powerman 5000 Bombshell here on CoinMetal. And that was Corrosion of Conformity with Damned for All Time. And so, let's get back into this bad boy. And, let's see here. We're on fairness. I'm just going to go back to fairness, even if that's... No, actually, it looks like we're... Wait, transaction-funded dividend transactions. No delay. That's weird. I think we got through identity. And I'm pretty sure we got through transactions. Transaction-funded dividend. This is on 3.4. During the process of performing each transaction, a transaction fee of 1% is assessed. This would be removed from the amount received any time money is moved from one account to another for any reason. It is universal and unavoidable even on secondary accounts. The purpose of this fee is to aggregate an amount in proportion to the total economic activity into a dividend to create a universal basic income. At the end of the day, this account is distributed equally to each primary account at midnight GMT. Since the currency is not tied to any nation, it is by default global, so this may be called a global automatic dividend. The dividend generated is thus 1% of the total economic activity of the entire monetary system for the previous day. 3.5. Fairness. Being accumulated daily and paid daily, it will eliminate pay period issues like varying month lengths or weekend biases. As the currency's daily velocity increases, so does the next day's dividend, yielding trusted rapid feedback as to how the economy is faring. My apologies, I kind of lost it there. As automation breaks supply chains into smaller pieces, this maintains the set fee of 1% on that activity, even down to charging 1% on a fee as small as conceivable. Automatic monetary supply adjustment. This is 3.6. The phone application running this system will strongly encourage members to change one-time transactions into daily payments. This has multiple effects on the system. On average, discretionary spending is not done via payments and cannot easily be turned into daily amounts. As such, the ratio of automated daily payments representing recurring bills changes to reflect changes in discretionary income, both from the dividend and from earned income over the whole network. The discretionary ratio can then influence how the money supply can be adjusted to ensure people have enough money to continually increase their living standard without causing inflation. The amount should not be able to change quickly, so it is proposed to only change the amount created for each new member. Early in this process, the volatility will be higher than later on when many members exist. So this will migrate towards more stability as time passes. It also ensures that the trend of changes in discretionary income take full effect before the money supply begins to adjust. Okay. It's really confusing. 3.7. Increased velocity. An equal benefit is that by automating a large portion of the economy to take place daily, and with the dividend being distributed daily at midnight GMT, members can further automate payments 1 minute later after they have received their income. Businesses can receive daily payments from customers and pay their suppliers 1 minute later. Still, other businesses can receive those payments and schedule even more in the following minutes. With all this taking place in a very short period of time, a significant portion of the day's total monetary velocity has been undertaken automatically. As the day progresses, the majority of spending will become discretionary, luxury, entertainment, and other sporadic expenses. The effect of this is to increase the reach of each transaction in its multiplier effect to the maximum as rapidly as possible. The ultimate limit on this is that each dividend unit given at midnight is transacted enough times during the day that it vanishes into the next day's dividend. The overall effectiveness of this entire system is based on the progress made toward this end. 3.8. Automatic fee adjustment. By comparing the average rolled over wealth not spent that day in the richest 10% of accounts to that of the poorest 10%, another important ratio can be obtained, called the inequality ratio. This can be used to automatically adjust the 1% transaction fee. Increased inequality is then offset by increasing the 1% fee a small amount, which captures progressively more revenue from the wealthy than from the poor. This is because of the tendency for wealthy earners to do so via multiple transactions, thus paying the fee multiple times. It is also because increasing the dividend means progressively more to the poor than to the wealthy. Fucking people are silly, dude. Rich people aren't rich because of some fucking magic thing. It's because they spend less than you. That's why they're able to save and have more than you. Continuing on. 3.9. Productive attractiveness. Since many types profiteering financial activity are based on chains of multiple transactions per unit of money, they will pay the 1% on each one in that chain. This will discourage those activities from being performed in this currency. However, to earn money in this currency and exchange it for another currency, the fee is still assessed on both activities. As such, this will be most attractive to the productive activities and the poorest groups. Why would it be attractive to them to be taxed by virtue of the fact that they're using your currency? As the collective productive activity increases, the attraction of investment and financial services will only bring higher margin services. No activity returning less than 1% will occur if it is charged a 1% fee. I don't buy that. 3.10. Market attractiveness. By charging only 1% per transaction, this is cheaper than most transactions in today's national currencies. As such, businesses desiring to sell to members will see a drop in most transaction costs when operating solely with this currency. This holds true for their supply chain, so they will encourage more of that chain to operate in this currency. This is valid equally well for international exchange, remittances, covert operations, and black markets. Each level of increased commerce thusly increases daily velocity, which increases the individual dividend, which increases the membership attractiveness in a continuous cycle. Should the dividend begin to fall, new membership growth will fail new membership growth will fall until demand rises again. This allows the whole economic system to catch up after periods of unexpected growth while avoiding a crash. 3.11 Global Balance. Since primary account membership is offered equally to each human in the population, it offers numerous benefits over national basic income proposals. The dividend is nominally equal for each primary account holder regardless of their geography, nationality, income status, or other group identity. As such, an equivalent amount will help the poor proportionally more than the wealthy. It will progressively raise the floor of global poverty equally around the world. As groups rise from living on $1 per day to $2, they do so equally in every nation. No, I don't see that working out. Only when everyone is up to $3 to $4 per day will the amount rise above that to fully support those who need that amount. Before then, anyone receiving this free income will get the lower amount that will only help partially. This is unlike national basic income proposals, which suggest that each dividend be matched to the current standard of living and which maintains inequality among rich and poor regions. This system is also not limited to forever supplying just enough for a basic survival. As technology advances, it passes along those benefits equally to each person volunteering to receive it. In this manner, the past advances of society yield benefits to all members, not just the patent and copyright holders or owners of the automation services. Yeah, but they are disproportionately rewarded. Got like a weird light going on. Sorry. Anyway. 3.12 Crossover Point. At some point in the future, the cost of living will have fallen enough and the dividend will have risen enough that each individual will be able to survive with no additional income. That survival level is not merely food and water, but defined here as maintaining a standard of living level with their perceived class standing, measured as pre-scheduled payments. Since by design sporadic payments cannot be scheduled, this tracks well with their true non-discretionary income when averaged over the full system. For the poorest developing regions, this will happen earliest as time progresses. It will happen for each of the higher wealth groups. However, as each class continues to rise above their survival level, they progress into what they have previously considered a wealthier class. Yeah, whatever, dude. 3.13 Abundance. With each advance of a region's income levels, their local commerce rises. Because income earned from this is in addition to the dividend they were already receiving, their total wealth grows faster than the dividend does alone. And due to the multiplication effect of each transaction causing follow-up transactions, this magnifies the overall effect of the system. Since the increased commerce mostly affects only productive businesses, this increases people's standard of living, their education levels, their discretionary income, their market power, their political power, and their social happiness. The results of these changes could have great benefits towards solving social issues not limited to simple poverty, but would include such issues as education, crime, domestic violence, unnecessary commuting, immigration, political partisanship, terrorism, wars, unchecked military spending, resource waste and devastation, and environmental issues. as technology makes better goods and services while also dropping the cost. The system counters the loss of paid jobs with a proportional increase in population who don't need jobs. In this way, it supports equally well both the coming post-monetary society and a predictable transition to it. Let's see here. Transaction fee, automatic fee adjusted, crossover point, abundance, optional tax disruption. Let me get some water in me. A little bit parched. Optional tax disruption. The limits of this system are only caused by the current system charging high taxes on the lowest earners. The complex system of subsidies, regulatory capture, and favor political influence, resulting market imbalances, and other inequalities of opportunity, effectively places more burden on the poor than the wealthy. The removal of all government taxes would correct these problems and more to some maximum point, but would be untenable until another source of revenue exists. As this system is adopted over time, its benefits may grow faster than it is needed to support its basic income mandate. If so, the remaining portion of the dividend would be donated to governments under certain conditions. Doing so would encourage them to accept taxes in this currency and would alleviate the need for some tax revenue, would facilitate more of the economy to switch to this currency, and would relieve the unbalanced total tax strain on the productive workers. It would also remove the last remaining factor supporting the existence of central banks, the fractional reserve system, debt-based money, and all the societal expense that accompanies them. The conditions to begin this process are fairly simple to list. As measured in this system, discretionary income must remain on the rise because technology is always advancing our standard of living. Inequality must be stable or decreasing. Membership must be a significant portion of the population. The system must have been fairly stable for some period of time, no abrupt or imminent changes in the adjustments, and the government must represent the majority of ideals in its population on all major issues. This entire feature is mentioned as an introduction to future options and not being proposed at this time. It's left for the audience to investigate. Number 4. Reaction. 4. Member adoption. The initial attraction for members to join this network will be a combination of getting free money and expecting future rises in currency value. As such, the base of members is expected to be some in the tech community, soon followed by some of the poorest people, which are introduced to the network by activists. The tech members will be mostly investing to speculate on future growth, which will drive both market capitalization and dividend. This will become instantly attractive to poor communities until membership dilutes the dividend. Until this time, they will use the money to pay for local supplies, which will attract some initial commerce. This will begin the organic growth due to multiplier effects. It is hoped that this activity will then increase investment activity, which creates a self-supporting cycle. The end of this phase could be when growth slows and appeal wanes. However, an exodus will incur transactions which will spike the dividend, creating a mini boom in commerce, which will support the cycle again. 4.2. Business adoption. When members show local merchants that they have money to spend and want their products, this will attract businesses to accept this currency to make the sale. And to earn this income creates a need for them to spend it on their suppliers and workers. This begins the cycle of velocity increase. The ease of automating receipts and payments will prove a benefit and time savings, so they are likely to promote this feature. In doing so, they initiate the cycle of the discretionary ratio climbing. This now begins the climb in new members, causing more currency units to be created. As such, the dividend per person climbs at some steady pace. Seeing this appeals to both the members and the businesses to increase their attraction. Okay. 4.3. Financial adoption. Larger scale investment now sees this as something that could have strong potential. This may cause more speculative investment in both total money injected and in monetary velocity, both of which support the main processes of increasing the dividend and the value of each currency until currency unit given in the dividend. This begins the phase of exponential self-growth. 4.4. Financial reaction. The large players in global finance will be strongly against this system as it does not support their revenue model. They will see an increasing amount of commerce switching over as acceptance grows, and their reaction will be to propose legislation to stop it. Many media outlets will support them with rhetoric about the economy crashing or this system failing to secure people's finances from theft or systemic failure. However, this has been the trend in today's existing cryptocurrencies and has led to the opposite effect. The more bank representatives advise them to be a scam, the more it drives people toward them. Numerous recent jumps in crypto adoptions can be directly tied to bank opposition. As such, the more they fight against this system, the less people will listen to them. And while other productive financial activity like crowdfunding, crowd equity, and fair interest lending will enter this market, the remaining economy increasingly fails to maintain the growth it needs to survive. In this way, their coming disaster is accelerated. 4.5. Deflation resilience. However, if this market happens to deflate in unit value, the processes involved will follow a set of correcting steps. First, the velocity will spike and then settle to a lower amount. This will automatically reduce the dividend, causing new membership to stop. Then it will slowly migrate the 1% transaction fee upwards to increase the dividend. People will see the future value as lower, so they will spend the money they have saved before it falls too far. This will counter some of the dividend drop. The dividend volatility suggests to investors that while this market is unpredictable, it is still causing commerce throughout its membership. And finally, while this is not attractive to most investors, this will attract others who attempt to profit from the volatility. And this final action ends up causing more transactions, which causes a return of the dividend to its growth trend. The system may not return immediately to its former valuation, but it can easily return to a steady growth path. 4.6. Market comparison. Today's monetary system runs an economy made up of productive businesses providing goods and services that customers want. It can be argued that some financial services fall into this category, but with a free service disrupting that industry, demand for existing services will quickly fall, especially if quality is similar. The reason is that a disrupting technology is cheaper and expected to continue to become even cheaper yet. As such, it can be said that all of the financial industries collectively could be disrupted in the approaching years. If so, this would reduce the financial overhead of all goods and services by the amount of GDP that the financial industry makes up on the whole. If all tabulated, they can be estimated at between 20 to 40% of total U.S. GDP. It is likely that even more of the 40% number is conservative, but if true, then they add a cost equal to 66% of the value of the productive economy. Number 5. Additional services. 5.1. Lending. Today's lending falls into 3 categories: personal, business, and investment. A dividend account, which turns over 1% of the economy each day, has the ability to act as a lending pool for each of these types of loans. In such a system, the loan is borrowed from the total membership on one day and repaid back to them over time. As such, the impact of each loan is imperceptible to each member, and only aggregate totals influence their finances. If this total impact is balanced against the benefits of these loans helping the community, the individual sees no total impact. The proposed automated monetary system has the ability to further minimize this impact by handling these deals with no overhead charge or management fees. This proposal outlines an integrated lending system designed to aid a majority of common loan types for a majority of people. It is not designed as a replacement for all types of loans. Well, it could. At least you're not overly ambitious, right? 5.2. Personal loans. Personal loans are generally for an individual's uses, ranging from getting by to securing assets. If the dividend pool was to offer a loan on one day to an individual, that would reduce the dividend share to every member by their portion of the loan amount. As such, they should receive the benefits of repayment interest, since they are only bearing the weight of their role in the economy, and since the loan's purpose benefits all of society, in theory, they already receive those benefits indirectly. As such, the interest paid should be limited to an incentive to repay outstanding loans. It is proposed that these loans pay a flat 1% per year, non-compounded, on the outstanding balance. This is complemented by a loan payment limited to the discretionary income of the individual's expected daily dividend. If the discretionary ratio is 25% at the time of the loan, then a loan of 90 times the daily dividend could be paid back in 1 year. In this way, a short-term loan always remains a manageable form of discretionary income. As technology advances and discretionary spending rises to 30%, this would allow a loan of 100 times the daily dividend amount. Loan terms of 2 years would simply double the loan limit. Beyond these conditions, a peer consensus system should be set on guidelines on the allowed frequency, term lengths, and interest rate each as it relates to the discretionary ratio and the inequality ratio. Okay. 5.3 Business loans. Business loans with set terms based on projected future success make up the next type of today's loans. Municipal bonds effectively fall into this category, as well as with the terms altered. These are often rolling loans used to balance daily transactions to weekly or monthly bills. Since a majority of business will be transacted daily, these types of loans will not be needed as often as the remaining demand increasingly falls into the investment category. 5.4 Investment. Businesses also borrow higher amounts from a more open ledger base at open-ended terms by selling shares of stock. This investment is an important part of growing a business or covering temporary periods of risky events. Unfortunately, it has become standard to maintain these investments perpetually, as though they increase the profitability. If the company purpose is to create long-term wealth for the owners by producing goods or services for the customer at the best value, then these loans should migrate to the shortest and best terms for investment should be used instead. In the big picture, the public would be better off allowing product value to rise than by trying to benefit by investing in their predicted winner. For this reason, investments should be a personal decision, not a community one. Hold on 1 second here. A little better there. However, by using a personal loan, a fund can immediately aggregate the loans from many individuals into one investment. The contract would then take the daily company repayment amount and direct it towards the repayment of all of the individual loans, with additional return on investment continuing the return after the principal is paid off. This can be done without creating any new structures in the main system, as long as the personal loan conditions are adhered to. 5.5 Bonds. Larger and more community-based loans are generally handled as bonds. These can be handled in the same fashion as company investment, with no excessive return becoming the standard. It is still left to the participants to agree to no interest terms, and this is still left to smart contracts to maintain the deals. 5.6 Insurance. The same process of personal loans can be extended to handle insurance, again with no overhead. By simply extending the borrowing limit in the event of a claim, an insurance claim can be seen as a loan against future payments. Through an ongoing peer voting process, specific claims are categorized by the percentage they are covered. If the peer consensus is only health care is applicable, then only a set of health and medical claims is authorized, while other categories are always being debated by the global member consensus. In this way, each regional problem is identified to the global group and assessed by its daily impact to each member directly. Individual claims are then approved to be paid from the daily pool. As with the personal loans, this is paid back out of discretionary money, but no interest is charged. However, the repayment is now based on a schedule reflecting the percentage of coverage for that type of claim. Claim types that are fully covered are immediately considered, are immediately considered paid off, while types only 10% covered are immediately paid down to 90% of their total balance. This resulting system would pay the full benefit to the individual in one day, and like loans, any repayment would simply be deducted from future dividends with no management overhead. 5.7. Prosperity Insurance Benefit. The balance of claims may earn negative interest based on the global discretionary ratio. If the discretionary ratio used as a measure of average prosperity is climbing, this is an indicator that people have increasing wealth. Under this scenario, outstanding insurance claim balances may participate in this prosperity by being reduced by some percent each year. In this way, even those claim types not popular on a global scale get benefit from the overall prosperity increase. With a low discretionary ratio, outstanding claim balances maintain their status as a loan to be repaid. This helps stabilize the system during recession periods and passes the costs onto the better times in the future. Yeah, assuming those happen, right? 6. Conclusion. 6.1. Promotion. The proposed system can be implemented at only the cost of developing and licensing the appropriate software. It can be distributed at no cost and be promoted by advocates at no cost. The promotion is heavily dependent on the names, logos, and other brand nuances chosen to represent it. They should present it as a nonpartisan system which supports the ideals of free markets and capitalism, with social benefits limited to those which are derived and which benefit everyone equally. Since advancing technology is the main example of this, it should be showcased as the basis for this system. In other words, as the global collection of historical technology accumulates, each member of society would receive an equal benefit from that. Also, through the technology involved in the operation of this system, the benefits of a zero-cost financial system should also be passed along equally to each member of society. It should be identified that these are currently socialized costs now paid by unequal distribution among the people and untaxed by its beneficiaries. 6.2. Supplemental monetary system. It should also be a part of the promotion information that this monetary system is initially designed as a supplemental one to the current offerings by nations and digital innovation. It is designed to grow organically into a system which can remain one of many or be adopted by any combination of groups. While it contains many attractive aspects, they are all based on the roles of both the individual and society as a whole. It does so by its design with respect to issues of fairness, privacy, independence, personal control, non-aggression, choice, and the social issues of basic human survival needs. It also balances the social side with the individual side by automatically balancing individual costs with societal benefits returning indirectly to the individual. While viewed through a narrow lens, this could fit under labels ranging from capitalism to fascism to socialism. A few points should be kept in mind. It removes many of the corrupting factors of today's versions of capitalism and returns it to a faster reacting free market. On the social side, the fee it charges is smaller than the average transaction paid now, let alone the taxes paid for similar benefits today. And the returns in the lending and insurance parts are based on factors set by the global popular consensus. 6.3. General appeal. With significant adoption and growth into large portions of the world, this proposal should become appealing to members of every system of governance, monetary system, and income bracket, with one exception. The financial industry, which currently profits 20 to 40% of GDP, will be disrupted through the competition against a zero-cost competitor. As such, these institutions will claim it cannot work, it cannot become stable, and that it may crash the economy. Even though industry leaders will make these claims, individuals in these industries will see all the societal benefits, individual benefits, and coming stability that the existing systems cannot offer under approaching circumstances. Because individuals will still act first on their personal interest, they may abandon their industry's desires. If this occurs, there is no limit to the adoption rate possible to this system. Quote, big picture conclusion. A high-level overview of today's systems is needed for comparison to an alternative system with no financial overhead. This is only possible by aggregating all passed on financial expenses up and down every supply chain. All transaction costs, interest fees, membership and account fees, loan fees, stock and fund management fees, stock bubble costs, insurance overhead, and other expenses should obviously be included in this comparison. However, there are a myriad of different indirect costs associated with operating a society always in debt, always scrounging for growth, always using their survival as the justification for compromising their social actions, and always placing monetary wealth as their most important goal. These costs are incalculable to any accurate level, but they can be assumed to be many times the official GDP portion of today's economies. Arguably, nearly any societal problem can be attributed in whole, or at least in part, to some group's reduced wealth or income. And assigning cost numbers to this collection would bring the cost of today's economic system much, much higher still. As such, there is simply no justification for not trying an alternative system. The potential benefits include eradicating poverty, reducing excess individual and national inequality, solving every problem listed here to some extent, and offering full banking services and increased local commerce to the poorest people on the planet. The potential maximum costs are any speculative investment on its success and 1% fees on every transaction occurring in the system. There is no government policy debate required and no competition to overcome before it can be implemented. In short, there are many benefits, few risks, and low costs. Technical implementation in progress. 7.1 Platform. This proposal is designed around a networking platform with numerous requirements. Just 5 years ago, these would have been unfavorable, but recent technology has progressed to the point that this is all possible at this time. The overall platform must be standardized across all member devices in function and interconnection. However, many different devices can be used to accomplish this. 7.2 Devices. The devices used to access the system should not be limited in any way. This means that iOS and Android, Windows, and Linux operating systems should all be able to provide a suitable client application. It also means that cell phones, tablets, laptops, desktops, kiosks, and store-specific ATM devices should also work identically. The only requirement is that their client apps adhere to the function and interconnection requirements. Function. That's 7.3. The native functions of a client app should at a minimum include facial recognition for account ownership, the gesture handshake operation for live human verification, the ability to locate and retrieve account ledgers, the ability to perform the transaction, and the ability to display account-specific statistics. Hidden functions include retaining the ledgers of both parties of the transaction, satisfying requests for that info to any other decentralized client previously having done business with, reporting the posted balance to the network, and applying accrued balance adjustments that the network sends out. Account initialization. When a new account is created by the client not recognizing the face or other account identifiers, it should create the facial profile and the template gesture profile. It then creates a new account with 1,000 coins already in it. This number is minimally adjusted by viewing certain ratios as mentioned in other sections. This balance is now available to be spent as though the account has previously existed. However, this must be done in conjunction with an initial transaction to ensure the ledger begins propagating across the network. (7.5) Transaction accounting. Accounting functions required to accomplish this entire networked project amount to the aggregated functions of each individual client performing its personal accounting. These are as follows. 7.6 Retrieving balance. The first accounting operation is to contact known ledger holders with whom any previous transaction has been performed with, and request this account's balance. Along with this ratio, the current transaction cost, the 1% number, which may range plus or minus 25% 0.25%, will be included. Also, it will receive both the previous day's ratio numbers, inequality, and discretionary ratios, and the total coins known to exist in the entire system. If this transaction is the first one after account creation, the completion of the transaction includes sending the account number, the date and number of the coins that were created initially. And that is that. Yeah, I'm not entirely certain that I'm on board with all this. It's a little bit sparse in functions, and like I said, I would have liked to have seen the ideas in this thing fleshed out just a little bit more. Anyway, need to throw back down into some music for a few, and then we'll be back to close this bad boy up. Let's go ahead and throw down a little bit of Cold Chamber here. Sway. Here on Coin Metal. And that was Killing Joke with Seeing Red. So yeah, we covered the entirety of this global automatic dividend business. Honestly, I don't think it'll work. And I think the problem that I see with a lot of these projects that talk about stable coins and talk about how they're going to automate functions within the economy. No, you're not. You're not. You think you are. You might even be able to design and release a product to that end. But the actual effect on the economy and how it expresses in the economy is not going to be according to what you're intending. You know, that I keep saying that there's no experts in this space, and I stand by that statement, that I really believe that what we have are people that are very experienced with this tech, and some even more so than others. But we don't have experts, because none of these people, no matter how much experience they've accumulated, can do any better than speculate to tell you what's going to happen next month. They couldn't tell you what's going to happen definitively next month if they wanted to. You know, it's not even a matter of, you know, what's within their realm of possibility to claim, because plenty of reasonable claims can be made about crypto, but so much unreasonable shit happens within this space that you can't look at it in terms of rationality. You know, I mean, these systems are, I think they're better than the existing centralized ones we have, but they do have problems in and of themselves. Unfortunately, I don't think you're going to solve the ones that I'm talking about with code. You know, that you're not going to be able to rebalance the economic distribution of these fucking funds. No. And one of the primary reasons you won't is because people will want to use coins that are advantageous by comparison to your coin. You know, it's like, oh, can I use another coin that doesn't charge me 1%? Maybe I can get use a coin that charges me 0.1% for my transaction, because it's not worried about trying to supply some dividend to issue out to everybody else. It's just there to help me make my fucking transaction. And you know, we haven't gotten to the point where devs are having to really compete on that aspect. I mean, we had a little bit of that during the initial alt boom between late 2013 through 2015, where coins were comparing themselves to others and saying, hey, look at us, we've got, you know, X feature or Y feature or Z feature that's better than Bitcoin. We've been able to get away with just claims, or at least some of us have, rather. But I really think it's going to come down to whether or not you can actually produce what value you do produce with your service, and how much of an additional cost, either in PETA or technical lag or anything else like that, by comparison to others. And when your customers are making their decisions based on those parameters, you don't have a lot of the same monopoly power you had previously. So it'd be a good idea to vacate those policies post haste. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and close this episode out. Thank you very, very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. We will be back again on Wednesday. And so until then, I'd like y'all to trade safe. Do your homework. And watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. And as far as a last dance, I've been dying to play this one. 6th Pussyfoot Last Dance here on Coin Metal. Thank you again for listening, and you all have an excellent evening.